If you've been following me for a while, you know I have deep dives on almost every piece of the investing puzzle individually: cash allocations, account optimization, portfolio construction, TSX versus S&P 500, asset classes, all the fun stuff. Today I'm going to pull it all together. One video, the complete Canadian investing framework, how to actually build and optimize a portfolio based on where you're at in life. No fluff, just the research, the math, trade-offs. I'll try my best to keep it short. First one that trips people up is overcomplicating something that does not need to be overcomplicated. Based on the research from Bender at PWL Capital, if your portfolio's 160K or under, the savings optimization across multiple accounts and ETFs is really minimal. It's around $100 a year. The Morningstar Mind the Gap study found in their most recent one in 2024, investors lose about 1.2% annually just from their own behavior. A lot of it's not even panic selling behavior. A lot of it's just tinkering when you don't really need to because you saw some guy on Reddit post about some great covered call option. And a lot of that behavior stuff costs 10 to 30 times more than your ETF structure benefits you. So you're not losing money because you picked VFV over VU in a RRSP. You're losing money because you sold everything in March when Trump did tariffs, and then you bought back 6 months later when it recovered. For most people, really, truly, keeping it simple does win over time. The all-in-one ETFs like XEQT, ZEQT are great. It's more important just to set the habits of automatic contributions, actually saving and investing money in your tax shelters, closing your investment app, not staring at it all the time, not following random people's advice online, or researching very carefully with a small chunk of your portfolio before making a change. And all of these all-in-one tickers are getting more and more competitive. They all just lowered their fees. So you're paying under a few $100 for this investment per year if you have 100,000 invested. One and done. Investing really can be that easy. Why would you want to invest in the global economy though? Canada makes up roughly 3% of global equity markets. If you only own the TSX, 69% of your portfolio is concentrated in 3 sectors: financials, energy, and materials. The big banks make up a fifth of the index, and it's, hoping that the banks do well every single year after year. I personally love this study from Dimson Marsh Staunton dataset. 125 years of returns across 35 countries shows Canadian equities returned about 5% real return. US equities returned about 6.6% real, closer than most people think. The real insight to me is research shows that dominance rotates in long cycles. TSX crushed S&P 500 from 2000 to 2010. US dominated 2011 till pretty much now, besides the last few years. Right now we're back on top. TSX is all-time highs while the S&P is dealing with a lot. Nobody consistently picks winners in advance over time. If they could, they'd not be making YouTube videos about it. They'd be one of the wealthiest peoples on the planet. For me, I like holding both. They diversify each other nicely. Vanguard projects international stocks to outperform the US by 2.2% over the next decade. Research affiliates expect US bonds to outperform US large cap. When firms managing $25+ trillion in assets say things like it's maybe worth it, that's good to take note of. What XEQT actually gives you though, is it gives you that target of 45% US, 25% Canadian, 25% international, 5% emerging markets. It's a proper global diversification in one purchase. Plus, if you want fixed income and lower volatility, VBAL or ZBAL give you those 60-40 splits. ZGRO gives 80-20, all rebalance automatically, all under 0.25 MER. It's nice. You don't have to keep tracking and rebalancing over time. If your portfolio is over that 160, 200K and you have discipline to manage multiple accounts without doing something regrettable during a correction, optimization definitely starts to pay for itself. And the best way to optimize without adding more risk is account location optimization. Canada taxes are 4 types of income very differently from investments. In Ontario, at $100,000 in income, interest is taxed 31.5%. Foreign dividends at about the same rate. Capital gains about half that, 15.7%, and Canadian eligible dividends just 8.9%. Those gaps are enormous and they drive those placement decisions for account optimization. So let's think about this conceptually. TFSA, your most powerful account, Every dollar of growth is permanently tax-free. Definitely focusing on highest growth, lowest dividend ETFs. XEQT here is quite optimal. If you wanted to take on a little bit more risk with a smaller percentage, sure, go for it, but keep it pretty plain otherwise. RRSP is where US listed ETFs go, like VOO or VTI. The Canada-US tax treaty gives you that 0% withholding tax on US dividends inside an RRSP. Holding the Canadian wrapper version like VFE, you lose about 0.19% to that embedded withholding that you can't recover. On $500,000 in US equity, it's about $950 a year walking out the door. And sheltering your fixed income like bonds, that's a smart decision here, because otherwise it's taxed at your full marginal rate. Non-registered accounts, this is where Canadian dividend ETFs shine, VDY, XEI, ZEB. The dividend tax credit means eligible dividends face about that 9% tax on 100K income versus 31% tax on that same income that comes out in an RRSP. Putting Canadian dividend payers in your RRSP, definitely not like the worst mistake ever, but it is an expensive mistake that can add up over time. It's better optimized elsewhere, like non-registered with a DTC credit, or TFSA. FHSA, same logic as TFSA, high growth, low distributions, but knowing if you're going to spend it in a couple of years, maybe be a little bit safer with that money. What could a scenario look like in practice? So for someone with 300,000 across accounts, you might have VOO in the RRSP, zero withholding, bonds in the RRSP to shelter that interest tax, Canadian dividend ETFs in a non-registered for the DTC, XEQT or a growth tilt in your TFSA. Again, keeping it simple, this could save you $500 to $2,500 a year according to the research from Vanguard, PWL Capital, and Morningstar. And this is a long-term game. Over 30 years, 500K portfolio, 20 to 30 basis points of optimization compounds to well over 100 to 200K. I also want to mention on alternatives from our asset class series like gold, traditional census says 5 to 10%. Ray Dalio recommends 15. The World Gold Council found that 5% allocation in gold in a portfolio improves the Sharpe ratio by 12%. I like to frame it as crisis insurance. It does not need to be exciting. It needs to be there when everything else is not there for you. Bitcoin, everyone's favorite. BlackRock's December 2024 white paper recommends 1 to 2% of the total portfolio. Above 2%, Bitcoin adds 14% of total portfolio risk. If you want exposure, keep it small. Think of it as a spice, not a main course. Bonds have finally started to earn their place back in a portfolio again. Treasuries around 4%. Long-term real yields are actually above 2% for the first time since before 2020. So bonds are somewhat back. Every major firm now treats them as a real contributor of returns again and earning its spot back into a well-diversified, balanced portfolio. I don't hold them personally, but they make a lot of sense, especially psychologically. A quick note on two more things is, first is on REITs or real estate. David Swenson allocated 20% to real estate, but Swenson's not a Canadian carrying a $700,000 mortgage. For many Canadians, your home's already your largest single asset. You already are massively overweight real estate. Adding a dedicated REIT ETF on top of that's doubling down on the same bet. Many target date funds only hold about 3% in REITs. If you want some exposure, sure, go for it. But it's probably not the gap in your portfolio that you might think it is. Also, a lot of indexes already have real estate as well, especially small cap. Second is inflation protected bonds. The US version TIPS are offering real yields of about 1.9% on the 10-year, over 2.5% on the 30-year right now. Those are historically really strong. If inflation keeps you up at night, TIPS in your RRSP through something like the TIP or SCHP is a legitimate option. Canada sadly stopped issuing these real return bonds back in 2020, so our domestic equivalent is a shrinking market. XRB exists, but the supply is really thin, so probably not worth it. Are US TIPS worth it with the currency risk and everything? Maybe not, but worth looking into or considering. But again, RRSP would be the right home for those. Another piece is if you're sitting on a lump sum right now, maybe an inheritance, maybe you sold a property and you're afraid to invest it. And I get it. The data is extremely clear though. Vanguard, PWL Capital, Schwab, lump sum investing beats dollar cost averaging 2/3 of the time across global markets. And Morningstar is a great example of this, of the worst timer in history, invested at the absolute peak every single year for 20 years, still earned 3 times more than the person who stayed in cash. No 25-year period where cash has ever beaten stocks. But being super real, if the idea of investing a lump sum in the market all at once right now is a problem, then it might be your allocation or your target allocation is too aggressive. Felix at PWL Capital puts it really well. Lump sum investing, if it terrifies you, fix the allocation. A 60-40 portfolio invested immediately beats a 100% equity portfolio dripped in about 12 months. Maybe you're just taking on too much risk than you can actually stomach, so listen to that and use your judgment. Kahneman and Tversky also showed us losses are felt about 2.25 times as intensely as equivalent gains. That's evolutionary survival skills. Loss aversion has been confirmed across 19 countries. Your brain evolved to keep you alive in the savannah, not to dollar cost average into XEQT. The key is building a portfolio you can actually hold through a 30%, 40%, 50% potential drawdown. So the framework is 5 steps. Step 1 is figure out your account structure, check your RSP room on your notice of assessment or NOA, calculate the TFSA room. If you have been eligible since 2009, cumulative room is 109K in 2026. Step 2 is be honest about the complexity threshold. Under, let's say 200K, all in one ETF, just automate it. If you have a larger portfolio and the discipline, maybe looking at optimizing across accounts could make sense. Again, starting simple now beats doing it perfectly at the get. Step 3 is automate contributions. Remove the decision from your monthly routine. Thaler and Bernardzi's Save More Tomorrow research showed 78% of people accepted a pre-commitment plan when offered one. Make it automatic, make it boring. Boring really does build wealth over time. Step 4 is rebalance once a year. Pick a date, stick to it. November works well because you can combine it with tax loss harvesting. Do it inside registered accounts first where there's no tax impact. Step 5, you don't need to check your portfolio app every day. They prove that the more frequently you check, the more risk you perceive and the worse your decisions get. Your portfolio does not need daily supervision. It's an index fund. It's not your sourdough starter. The portfolio you hold through a crash and don't tinker with beats the perfect one you abandon. Global diversification matters, but discipline matters more than everything else. Like and follow for more like this, and give me suggestions of topics you want covered in the future.